Burkina Faso's young revolutionary leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has emerged as one of the boldest and most defiant voices against Western influence in Africa. His recent speech, fiery, unfiltered, and unflinching, was more than a political statement. It was a direct challenge to centuries of foreign domination, corruption, and betrayal. What he said sent shockwaves across the continent. The world is still trying to process the implications. Africa will rise, with or without your permission. That single line from Traoré's address hit like a thunderclap. But it wasn't just rhetoric. Its words were backed by action, conviction. Think the raw urgency of a man leading a nation through crisis. Traoré began by acknowledging the dire state of Burkina Faso, a country plagued by terrorism, poverty, and a legacy of French colonial rule. But rather than begging for international aid or submitting to pressure from Western powers, he turned the narrative on its head. We are not asking for help. We're demanding respect. He spoke with the clarity of a soldier who has fought in the trenches, seen the manipulation firsthand, and emerged determined to protect his people at any cost. He accused international organizations and former colonial powers of exploiting its African instability for profit-harming terrorist groups, draining resources and forcing African nations into impossible debts. They feed chaos to control us. That's how Traoré described the role of some Western governments in Africa, deliberately fueling conflict to justify military presence and economic domination. He said what many African leaders wouldn't dare say on record, that Africa's suffering is not an accident, but a strategy. The crowd roared in support as Traoré, dressed in his signature military fatigues, stood unmoved, unwavering. He spoke like a man on a mission not to seek approval but to ignite a movement. Our enemies wear suits and carry briefcases. This wasn't a vague attack. It was a pointed accusation toward financial institutions, NGOs, and so-called humanitarian missions that he said disguise imperialist agendas behind polished language and international law. Traoré's speech laid bare a truth often whispered in African politics but rarely spoken aloud, that foreign aid often comes with strings that tighten around national sovereignty. He denounced deals made behind closed doors, puppet governments installed with foreign backing, now resources extracted while communities starve. But Traoré didn't stop at criticism. His message was not just of defiance, but of renewal. Called on African youth to reclaim their future, urging them to rise, not just with anger, but with vision. We are the generation that will bury colonialism not in theory, but in practice. He demanded unity across the continent. Not unity based on flags and slogans, but unity in economic independence, shared security, and cultural pride. He cited examples from neighboring countries Mali, Niger, where military leaders are also rejecting Western dominance and choosing Pan-African alliances. This new wave of leadership, Traoré said, must not be seen as a code-driven instability, but as a painful but necessary rebirth of African sovereignty. They call us rebels, I call us liberators. Traoré's words were electric. He spoke in a tone that was at once confrontational and deeply personal. You could feel the weight of the lives lost in terrorist attacks. You could hear the pain of watching his people suffer while foreign powers profited from their misery. And you could see the determination of a young leader ready to face the consequences of telling uncomfortable truths. He promised reforms at home, greater transparency, accountability, and empowerment of local communities. But he also warned foreign powers that the days of silent submission were over. Greater than if you come with respect, we welcome you. If you come with chains, we will break them. His stance is risky. Burkina Faso is isolated by the West, sanctioned, criticized, but Traoré doesn't seem to care. He's betting everything on a future built, not on fear, but freedom. His appeal to the world was simple. Stop treating Africa like a project. Treat it like a partner, or get out of the way. As his speech closed, Traoré raised his fist. Not in anger but in a silent, symbolic declaration. the fight is not over. But for the first time in a long time, it's on Africa's terms. Asterix's message wasn't just for Burkina Faso, it was a war cry for the entire continent, a warning. To the rest of the world, Africa is waking up. And this time, it's not asking for permission. Asterisk.